It's never once, I'm a trap nigga, wanna know I'm stacked. I hit the plug up, thinking right out the vacuum. Sip the drugs up, bitch, ain't traffic. They know that I'm getting bugs. Now I'm out here causing havoc, niggas.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy SlimReacts, man. I'm back with another so fresh, so clean new video. Today's video, man, how the Milwaukee Bucks fell apart after winning it all, man. I genuinely thought that this team would repeat in 2022, and I do not understand how the Celtics beat them in 7, but they have no Chris Middleton, duh. But I think genuinely, if they did have a Chris Middleton, they probably would have won it all again, bro. Against Golden State, too? Oh, Golden State would have been cooked. So, yeah, man, let's get straight into the video, man. No, enough yapping, man. Let's go.
5 years ago, the Milwaukee Bucks were on top of the basketball world. Giannis Antetokounmpo had just dropped 50 points in Game 6 of the NBA Finals, delivering Milwaukee its first championship in half a century, and it felt like the start of something special. A small market franchise had built the perfect contender around a homegrown superstar. But today, the Bucks find themselves in a completely different situation, because after reaching the top of the mountain in 2021, Milwaukee has spent the last 5 years slowly sliding down it. But to understand why Giannis means so much to Milwaukee, we have to go back to what the Bucks were before he arrived. For most of the 2000s and early 2010s, the Bucks were one of the most forgettable teams in basketball. They weren't terrible, but they weren't good either.
And Michael Redd? Yeah, why did you like this?
Playing 2K with your friends.
Zesty,
Players like Michael Redd, Andrew Bogut, Brandon Jennings, and Monte Ellis had solid seasons, but Milwaukee rarely felt like it had a real future. They were also one of the smallest markets in the league, and barely got any national attention. From 2001 to 2013, they made the playoffs just 5 times and lost in the first round every single time. The franchise had been stuck in neutral for over a decade, but the 2013 NBA draft completely changed everything. With the 15th pick, the Bucks selected a skinny 18-year-old from Greece named Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was the youngest player and the biggest mystery in the entire draft. Playing in Greece's second division, he was incredibly raw and nobody knew if his game would translate to the NBA. But Milwaukee took the gamble, and over the next few years, Giannis developed at a pace that nobody expected. By 2017, he had become an all-star and won Most Improved Player, and suddenly the Bucks had something they hadn't had in decades, a true franchise superstar. Once it became clear how special he was, Milwaukee started building the team entirely around him, but interestingly enough, the foundation of their future championship team had actually started forming the same year Giannis was drafted. In July of 2013, the Bucks traded Brandon Jennings to the Detroit Pistons in return for Brandon Knight and Chris Middleton,
Brandon Knight
as a throw-in piece. He had been a second-round pick in 2012 and barely played during his rookie season in Detroit. But once he arrived in Milwaukee, he quickly became a starter and slowly started developing. Year after year, his game improved, and he became one of the league's most reliable shooters. Eventually, Middleton became a 3-time All-Star and the perfect complement next to Giannis. By the late 2010s, Giannis was a full-blown superstar, and the Bucks started making serious moves to turn their young core into a contender. At the 2018 trade deadline, the Bucks traded for Eric Bledsoe, a 6'1" point guard who had just averaged 26 and 4 in back-to-back years with the Suns. However, he dealt with injuries that year and infamously tweeted, "I don't want to be here," right before the deadline. Bledsoe immediately became the Bucks' new starting point guard, but the real transformation happened that offseason. They hired
Eric Bledsoe,
an established
Suns
coach
legend,
who led the Atlanta Hawks to 60 wins a few years earlier. Then they made one of
what happened with that team though?
Era by signing 7'1" center Brook
They got
Lopez.
bounced out the playoffs.
After becoming the Nets' all-time leading scorer, Lopez got shipped to the Lakers where he struggled to fit in. That's where Milwaukee stepped in, signing Lopez to a cheap 1-year deal in the summer of 2018. At the time, it looked like a low-risk move, but Lopez ended up becoming one of the most important pieces of the Bucks' entire system. Defensively, he anchored the paint and turned Milwaukee into one of the league's most dominant rim-protecting teams. And offensively, he reinvented his game, transforming into a true stretch big who could space the floor and knock down threes. It was the perfect fit. Milwaukee also drafted national champion Dante DiVincenzo with the 17th pick, giving them another young piece to develop off the bench. Suddenly, everything started to come together, and in the 2018 season, the Bucks finished as the best team in the entire NBA. They won 60 games, Giannis won his first MVP, and Milwaukee had gone from rebuilding team to legitimate championship contender.
But they lost to the Raptors though.
But even with all that regular season dominance, the Bucks still had something to prove in the playoffs. They breezed past the Pistons and the Celtics in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, the Detroit Pistons with Blake Griffin was different. Obviously, the Celtics series, we know Kyrie, that's ultimately what made him leave the Celtics, that series right there. He just wasn't doing
out to a 2-0
too
lead.
Good. Started with the Magic series.
But Toronto made adjustments. Kawhi took on the challenge of guarding Giannis, and the Raptors built a massive defensive wall in the paint. Suddenly, Milwaukee's offense stalled out, and the Raptors won 4 straight games, eliminating the Bucks and eventually going on to win the championship. But that offseason brought one surprising change.
Kawhi would have went back
The
to
Bucks
back
lost
if he
former
stayed.
Rookie of the Year Malcolm Brogdon.
Because think about it, they made the conference, what was it, finals or the semifinals, and they beat the Celtics. So that year, did they? No, we beat them. We lost to the Heat that time. Yeah. But they put up a good fight.
Pacers after the two sides couldn't agree on a new contract. But even without Brogdon, the Bucks didn't miss a beat. In the 2019-20
They should have kept
season,
Brogdon.
the Bucks once again finished with the best record in the NBA, and Giannis won his second straight MVP award. But then came the 2020 bubble.
LeBron should have been MVP in 2020. Sorry, Giannis, but LeBron should have been. And in 2019, James Harden should have been MVP. Okay, and then 2018 should have been LeBron as well. Quite frankly. Yeah, that's just my opinion. And then Giannis should have been MVP in 2021, but instead, I think Jokic won it. But yeah, Giannis for sure 2021 MVP. I mean, I don't understand how he didn't win it.
Playoffs. Milwaukee matched up with the Miami Heat, and from the start, the series felt off. Jimmy Butler dominated Game 1 and Game 2 to take a 2-0 series lead, but the real turning point came in Game 3. The Bucks entered the fourth quarter with a double-digit lead and completely collapsed. The Heat outscored them 40-13 in the final quarter, taking a shocking 3-0 series lead.
That's some Celtics shit.
From there on, the series was basically over. The Bucks, the team with the best record in the NBA, were eliminated in 5 games, and suddenly the pressure was on. At the same time, Giannis' contract situation was looming over the franchise, and Giannis made it clear he wanted the organization to stay aggressive. If the Bucks wanted to keep their superstar long term, they needed to prove that they were all in. So in the 2020 offseason, Milwaukee made the biggest move in franchise history by acquiring Pelicans guard Jrue Holiday, who was one of the best defenders in the league. They gave up a massive haul including Eric Bledsoe, 3 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. It was a huge gamble as they were
I think Eric Bledsoe retired too.
Mortgaging their entire future for one player.
And look what happened though. They traded for Holiday, they won the championship. Celtics traded for Holiday, they won the championship.
But it worked. Jrue Holiday gave them
unfortunate for Portland though.
A true two-way point guard who could run the offense and shut down opposing guards. And the Bucks now had one of the most balanced lineups in basketball. They had another successful regular season, and when the playoffs began, the Bucks looked ready to prove something.
Yeah, they were only
third. In the first
third
round, they faced the Miami Heat, the same team that had embarrassed them the year prior. But this time, they flipped the switch and swept Miami in 4 games. Next came the Brooklyn Nets in the second round, a series that many people considered the real NBA Finals. The Nets had the most talented trio ever in Kevin Durant, James Harden.
Nets should have made the finals,
and the series quickly became
Kevin Durant's
Milwaukee fell
was over the line,
struggling behind Brooklyn's star power, but injuries shifted the momentum. Kyrie Irving went down, Harden played through a hamstring injury, and the series stretched to 7 games. In Game 7, Kevin Durant delivered an all-time performance. With Kyrie out and James Harden acting as a literal decoy, he dropped 48 points and nearly carried the Nets to victory. But in one of the most dramatic moments in playoff history, Durant's potential game-winning 3 was ruled a 2-pointer because of his size 37 foot. The game went into overtime.
What? Size 37 foot? Oh, he's probably talking about European... I was about to say, bro. Probably size 17. That's what he meant to say.
The Eastern Conference Finals brought another challenge: Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks, who were fresh off ruining Ben Simmons' whole career. The series was competitive early, and Milwaukee faced a scare when Giannis hyperextended his knee in Game 4. It looked like a potentially season-ending injury, and he would miss the rest of that series, a huge blow. But the Bucks kept fighting. In Game 5, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, and Jrue.
Bro, ain't no way they actually faced the Hawks. Hold on, because I heard about the Hawks like beating, the Knicks or whatever it was. Hold on. 2021 NBA playoffs, bro. There's no way. Because, okay, let's look at this here. Okay, so Sixers were the 1 seed. Get the fuck out of it. They went 4-1. Yeah, that was when Ben Simmons was actually still good. And then the Hawks beat the Knicks. They gentlemen swept them in the first round. Okay, that's where the Trae Young thing came. I thought it was in the second round. Bucks beat the Heat. They swept the Heat. The Nets gentlemen swept the Celtics. Yeah, we don't want to, remember that. And what's even more crazy? Jason Tatum has been in the playoffs every single year of his career. That's literally greatness right there. And then Hawks, Sixers, Atlanta wins in 7, which is crazy. That's the series where Ben Simmons was scared to shoot. That's where he lost all his confidence. Yeah, the Sixers should have won easily that series. I don't understand. And then Bucks win 4-3 over the Nets, and then the Milwaukee beats the Hawks in 6. That's crazy. The Hawks making the conference finals that year. Jazz were the 1 seed, and the Grizzlies were the 8 seed. They had Donovan Mitchell still and Gobert. but still, they should not be the first seed. The Suns should have been the first seed. Clippers Mavericks. Clippers win. Yep, that was Paul George and them. And Kawhi, I believe. Nuggets beat the Trailblazers. Trailblazers had Dame still. They win in 6. Okay. Suns beat the Lakers. Yep, we know that series. I know all the Suns. That was a huge Suns. I wanted the Suns to win it all. And so they beat the Lakers, which in 6, which is crazy. I mean, Lakers had all that talent still. Clippers win 4-2 over the Jazz, which is pretty crazy. And then Phoenix sweeps the Nuggets. Even with Jokic and Jamal Murray, they still swept the Nuggets, which is crazy. And they only had DeAndre Ayton at center, which is crazy. I mean, they had Chris Paul, too, as well in the mix. The Suns beat the Clippers in 6. And then the Suns lose in 6. Yeah, this is a crazy playoffs right here. This is like the most unpredicting playoffs right here. Like you said, nobody expected
for 84 points, and they took a 3-2 lead. Then in Game 6, they closed out the Hawks on the road behind 32 points from Chris Middleton. It was a resilient effort, and for the first time in 47 years, the Bucks were headed back to the NBA Finals. And waiting for them were the Phoenix Suns, led by Devin Booker and Chris Paul.
They should have kept Devin Booker and Chris Paul together. Should have never traded for Kevin Durant. That's where they fucked up. And they should have never traded Monty Williams, who literally won Coach of the Year in 2022. Big mistake.
2-0 series lead, and many believed the Bucks were cooked, especially with Giannis still playing through his knee injury. But what happened next became legendary. Milwaukee won 4 straight games, and Giannis delivered one of the greatest finals performances ever.
Yeah, the Suns were up 2-0 too. Like, there's no way they blew a 2-0 lead.
Game 4, he made this iconic block on DeAndre Ayton in the clutch. Drew Holiday followed that with one of the most clutch steals ever in Game 5.
Yeah, and he did the same thing for the Celtics as well in the Pacers series in Game 4. That's what Game 4 of that Pacers series was the Drew Holiday game, and he ultimately secured us the championship right there, the finals.
Throwing the famous alley-oop to Giannis to seal the win. And then came Game 6. On their home floor in Milwaukee, Giannis delivered a masterpiece. 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks, leading the Bucks to a 105.
19 free throws, though.
When the final buzzer sounded, the Bucks were NBA champions for the first time in 50 years. Giannis Antetokounmpo, once the skinny teenager from Greece, was now a Finals MVP and the face of a championship franchise. The Bucks had climbed all the way from a forgotten team to the top of the mountain. At that time, it genuinely looked like the Bucks might be the NBA's next dynasty, but from this point on, things started to get weird. The Bucks entered the 21-22 season as defending champs, and expectations were higher than ever, but the season quickly became a grind. Injuries started piling up almost immediately. Brook Lopez played just 1 game before undergoing back surgery that would sideline him for the majority of the year. Without Lopez protecting the rim, the Bucks had to constantly adjust their defense. One of the most underrated moves came at the 2022 trade deadline, when the Bucks traded Dante DiVincenzo in a 4-team trade for Serge Ibaka. DiVincenzo had
Ibaka. I remember he was on that team for a little bit. They were trying to fill that role.
Piece off the bench and was even starting during parts of the championship run. But after suffering a major ankle injury in the 2021 playoffs, he struggled to regain consistency. Milwaukee ultimately decided they needed front court depth more than another guard, especially with Lopez injured, so they moved on from him in hopes that Ibaka could stabilize their rotation. Even with all the injuries and roster adjustments, Giannis somehow kept getting better. He averaged 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists, playing some of the best basketball of his career and once again finishing near the top of the MVP race. Behind Giannis' dominance and strong seasons from Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, the Bucks finished 51-31 and were clearly still contenders.
Oh my gosh, wait, the Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers were all tied at 51-31. Damn.
But the playoffs would once again test them. In the first round, the Bucks faced the Chicago Bulls, who they handled pretty comfortably, winning the series in 5 games.
The Bulls were still good at this time. They were actually a solid team until they became a play-in team afterwards.
In that series, disaster struck. Chris Middleton suffered a sprained MCL in Game 2, forcing him to miss the remainder of the playoffs. And that injury ended up changing everything. Without Middleton, the Bucks entered a brutal second-round matchup against the Boston Celtics. The series turned into a defensive battle. Giannis was incredible, putting up massive numbers and carrying the offense almost entirely by himself.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to win this series.
The paint, created plays, and kept
Milwaukee. But Al Horford happened.
They even took a 3-2 series lead, putting themselves just one away from returning to the
3-2 series lead, and they lost the next 2 games.
Boston responded. In Game 6,
Tatum had 46 points. Yeah.
Forcing
everyone remembers this.
Boston. And in Game 7,
I was right here in this room looking at that TV like, what the fuck? This guy's not human.
Firepower. Without Middleton scoring and shot
and then Grant Williams,
struggled to keep up.
27 points. All threes, by the way.
Still, most people gave them the benefit.
No, I'm tripping. It's not all threes.
Winning back-to-back championships is notorious.
Actually, it is.
and the assumption around the league was that if Middleton was healthy, they'd probably win that series.
Yeah, that's
but
what I said in the
following season
beginning.
would prove that things were truly starting to shift in Milwaukee. The 2022-23 season looked like a return to dominance. They finished with the best record in the entire NBA, winning 58 games. Giannis continued playing like an MVP, Jrue Holiday made another All-Star team while anchoring the perimeter defense, and Brook Lopez had one of the best defensive seasons of his career, finishing second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Everything was pointing towards another deep playoff career, finishing second in
I think Jackson won
Defensive
it.
Player
Yeah,
of the Year voting.
that year.
Everything was pointing towards another deep playoff run, but when the playoffs began, everything fell apart. In the first round, the Bucks matched up with the Miami Heat, an 8th seed.
I think he had another 2020 type of run here.
Play-in tournament. On paper, it should have been an easy series,
Facts.
but instead, it turned into one of the biggest playoff upsets in NBA history. Giannis injured his back in Game 1 after a hard fall and missed multiple games,
Ugh.
leaving the Bucks scrambling early in the series.
Oh, he missed
Meanwhile,
games. I didn't even know he got
on
injured.
absolute fire, dropping 56 points in Game 4, the 4th most points ever in a playoff game. The Bucks lost in 5, and just like that, a team that many had picked to win the championship had been knocked out in the first round.
I remember
Following
Mike
Game
Breen's
Just days after
call
the loss,
on that
the Bucks
game.
made a
It was
massive
crazy.
decision by firing
Long
Mike
shot,
Budenholzer.
good.
It was a surprising move considering Budenholzer had led the team to so much success in his short time with the team, but the front office felt the team needed a new voice. So the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin, a longtime NBA assistant coach who had spent years on various teams around the league, most recently with Toronto under Nick Nurse. Griffin was known as a respected defensive mind and a strong leader, but he had never been a head coach before, and his tenure in Milwaukee quickly became complicated. That offseason, Damian Lillard had finally requested a trade from Portland following several unsuccessful seasons. Many expected him to be shipped to the Heat or the Nets, but John Moore saw a golden opportunity.
Yeah, the Nets, I remember that.
Dame. And in
Imagine
September
that.
of 2023, they pulled the trigger, sending Jrue Holiday, Grayson Allen, a first-round pick, and 2 first-round pick swaps to the Blazers for Damian Lillard. For Milwaukee, the logic was simple. Giannis had carried the offense for years, and while Jrue Holiday was an incredible defender, the Bucks had sometimes struggled offensively in the playoffs. Lillard changed that instantly. He was one of the best.
Why do they
players in
have
the entire league
Yeah,
and
that's
one of the
actually
greatest
fire, bro.
shooters
They
of
had Lexus in the fucking thing.
all time.
Yeah, 2021 was a crazy time period. The whole NBA COVID at time.
The idea of Giannis and Dame in the pick and roll was terrifying for the entire NBA. The Bucks looked even more dangerous than
Facts.
before, but the reality didn't quite match the hype. That season started with excitement, but problems began to surface quickly. Despite having one of the most talented rosters in the league, the Bucks struggled defensively under Adrian Griffin. The team looked disorganized on that end of the floor, and there were reports of tension behind the scenes between coaching staff and players. Then,
remember that.
despite having a 30-13 record, the Bucks decided to fire Griffin mid-season.
Yep.
They quickly replaced him with veteran coach Doc Rivers, hoping
Now, how did that turn
experience
out?
could stabilize the team heading into the playoffs.
Mind you, Doc Rivers, he won a championship. That's the only thing that was carrying his legacy. Because with the Celtics, he was literally he took us to multiple game 7s, which were unnecessary. Like we took the Hawks to 7 games, or the Hawks took us to 7 games. Like, it's just all these unnecessary game 7s that with Doc Rivers.
But the sudden coaching change
We would've won more
chaos
championships.
to an already bizarre season. Still, the talent on the roster carried them to the playoffs, but once again, the postseason brought trouble. In the first round of the 2024 playoffs,
Another
the
first
Bucks
round
matched up
upset.
with the Indiana Pacers, a young, fast team built around Tyrese Halliburton that had given Milwaukee problems all season long. And right before the series began, it was announced that Giannis had strained his calf and would miss the entire season. Without their best player, the Bucks were suddenly relying almost entirely on Damian Lillard. And despite averaging over 30 a game, the Bucks lost in 6. The 24-25 season was supposed to be the year the Bucks finally figured things out. Giannis was healthy again, and Doc Rivers had a full offseason to install his system. But the system never fully clicked. The defense still wasn't the same without Jrue Holiday. The roster around the stars was aging, and the team struggled to dominate the way contenders usually do. And at the trade deadline, they made another major decision, trading Chris Middleton to the Wizards for Kyle Kuzma, officially breaking up the duo that had been together for over
The
a
worst
decade.
thing they could have ever done, right
The
there.
move was driven by Middleton's injury issues and
Anyone
marked the end
but
of an era in
Kyle
Milwaukee.
Kuzma. Is he still on the
they
Bucks?
made
I
the
don't even
playoffs,
know.
And once again, their
Not
opponent
paying
was the
attention.
Indiana Pacers. But then the worst possible thing happened. In the middle of the series, Damian Lillard went down with a torn Achilles. It was a devastating injury that not only ended his season immediately, but also meant he would likely miss the entire following year. Without Lillard, Milwaukee had no chance of recovering in the series. It was another first-round exit, and now the front office was put in a nightmare scenario. Wait for Dame to recover and waste a year of Giannis's prime, or cut the future Hall of Famer in order to sign somebody else. And Milwaukee chose the latter. In one of the most shocking decisions the franchise had ever made, the Bucks stretched and waived Damian Lillard's contract less than 2 years after acquiring him. It was a brutal move financially, but it gave them the flexibility to bring in Miles Turner in free agency, who gave them something they desperately needed: rim protection, spacing, and another high-level defensive presence next to Giannis. The move signaled one thing clearly: the Bucks were still trying to win right now, even if it meant taking extreme measures. They were willing to do almost anything to keep Giannis on the roster. But by this time, the Bucks looked nothing like the team that had won the championship just a few years earlier. Drew was gone, winning another ring with the Celtics. Brook Lopez was gone, signing with the Clippers in the offseason. Even Pat Connaughton left. The Giannis-Dame duo that was supposed to take over the league played just 116 games together. And now the future of the Bucks was more uncertain than ever. And the season itself only made things worse. Giannis dealt with injuries throughout the year, but even when he was on the court, the Bucks were still under 500. This wasn't just bad luck anymore. This was a team that had completely lost its identity. Desperate for scoring, Milwaukee even took a short-term gamble on Cam Thomas after he was waived, but nothing seemed to work. And then came the moment that perfectly summed up the entire season. After a blowout loss late in the year, head coach Doc Rivers called a team meeting, where in an effort to remind them of his past success and prove he still knew how to win, he told his players to Google him. And for obvious reasons, the players mocked him, as Doc Rivers showed that not only is he the most overrated coach ever, he's also completely delusional. And that moment said everything about the state of the Bucks, because at this point, it isn't just about losing games anymore. The locker room is fractured, the players don't respect the coach, and the organization is completely directionless. And on top of all that, the Bucks have no draft picks, no real young talent, and almost no assets left to actually build around Giannis. The Bucks have proven they'll do anything to keep their franchise.
Yeah, Celtics, depending on how they play tomorrow, they, Giannis, come through.
At this point, it looks like they might actually be out of options. And when a team runs out of options, sometimes the only move left is giving up the player who gave them everything. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed...
So we'll see what happens with Giannis in Milwaukee, but Celtics are probably looking like a good candidate for him right now. So we'll see how the playoffs finish up. But hey, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, man. Drop a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel for new other than that, SlimReacts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Y'all see through, even with a blindfold. I could try today, so I'ma fly away. Live life in the fly away. Try to see the flyer say Trace, so she gotta get her hair right. Cause I ain't here at night, even if they here.